Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In today's video, I am having a discussion with Jasen from Jasen's Customs. Let's get started. Alright everyone, we have Jasen here from Jasen's Customs. He won a Fight Stick award this year for Best Premium Fight Stick. Thanks and welcome to the channel.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Alright, we'll start off with the first question. This one is a little interesting because I'm really curious on how you came about to make the Panzer Fightstick in the first place. What was your kind of influence behind the stick?
So in 2010, I had actually transferred from Italy back to the United States, and I bought my first arcade cabinet. I got a Blasteroids cabinet from a gentleman in Rhode Island, and it was a converted to Neo Geo. And that's when I first kind of got in arcade stuff. And the Fight Stick thing became kind of a direct descendant of the things I've done with arcades, because one thing interesting about Neo Geo is it's only got 4 buttons per player. The wiring pinouts on the JAMA harness can be a little bit different depending on which motherboard you have. And I really wanted to, just play a lot more arcade games. And I realized that my cabinet was going to be a limiting factor. And I didn't want to chop up the harness or convert it or anything like that so that I could play, Capcom games or any other JAMA boards on it. So I actually learned about super guns first and decided that I needed to build a super gun to play all these other boards on so that I could do it easy. And I didn't have to have like 10 or 15 different cabinets in my house because my wife would kill me. So I built my super gun, and then I realized that the only fight sticks or arcade sticks out there that worked with them at the time were the Neo Geo sticks, which again kind of led to the same issue of there's only 4 buttons. So I was doing some research. I was looking online, and I saw a lot of people using electronics enclosures as fight sticks, and they were just kind of drilling holes and adding hardware and just basically making them work for what they needed to do. And I thought, I think there's probably a bit better way to do it. So I sat down in CAD and I designed just a basic metal box and threw a Vuelix layout on it. And then found an awesome company that I've worked with ever since to manufacture it for me. And that was it. That was how the very first Panzer Fightstick was born. And it was actually called the tank stick initially because apparently there's another company out there that makes arcade sticks or fight sticks or all-in-one type things, and they actually sent me an email and said, hey, tank stick is something we already use, so you can't use it. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I started looking around and thinking about it, and I'm like, well, this thing really is built like a tank. What else can I use? And drawing on my military background, I, started looking around, and American tanks were just a little too on the nose. And so I ended up going with a German name for whatever reason, because it seemed to flow real well. And so Panzer was born, and that's how the very first one got made. And interestingly, it didn't work on consoles. It didn't work on anything. It just had a single DB15 port on the back, and you hooked it up to a super gun. And then from there, someone said, hey, I want one. Can you make me one? But I want it to work on PlayStation 3. And then I started doing some research and found PS360 Plus's by Aki Shop, and then, added the standoffs and extra buttons and stuff like that. And, that's the birth, if you will, of the Panzer Fightstick.
That's interesting. It's a really, really fitting name too. I really like it. And it's something that sticks out when you compare it in the, in the fighting game community. As soon as someone says Panzer stick, you know exactly what they're talking about. So, okay, so you started out with the tank stick, you renamed it the Panzer, but that was the Panzer
Right.
1. How did you transition from the Panzer 1 to the Panzer 3? Actually, the Panzer 3i.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question. And so basically, when you kind of look at a Panzer Fightstick, I make it simple. It's very simple, 2 pieces. When you really get down to nets, brass tacks about it, you got the top half and the bottom half. And the very first Panzer didn't have any plexi. It just used big old, or actually used little tiny rubber feet, which a lot of people complained about. And then, another thing they complained about that was there was only a couple layouts, and the buttons were in the wrong spot on the side. So when you take the bottom half off, the PS360 Plus or the Brookboard, whatever you had, was on the other side of the case from where all the wires was, and it was just a little cumbersome to build. And I was actually starting to get a lot of business at that time, which meant I had a lot more builds to do. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, this is taking way too much time, because I had to custom make all the wiring harnesses, and I didn't have a lot of capital yet to invest in manufacturing, large quantities of wiring harnesses. So I started thinking about ways to improve the fight stick and things I could do to make it more competitive. Because, at the time the TE2 was out, the TE2 Plus was, on the verge of coming out. And there was a lot of cool customizations you could do by swapping the panels when Mad Catz did offer that. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, I should try and do something like this with the Panzer, because it's going to be more versatile that way. And so what I did was I made the Panzer 2.0, and it was bigger. It was, I think it was like 18 inches wide, if I remember correctly. And it had a window on the bottom, and then the top actually had it was made with like 3 pieces. You had the main top plus a panel that was removable, so that you could swap in different layouts. And then I was like, I still have the same issue of wiring all these buttons up. And then the Universal Fight Board came out with the PlayStation 4, and you needed extra buttons like L3 and R3 and touchpad click, because the fighting games required it. So that was just more things to wire up. And I decided to use some of my circuit board design knowledge and build the Easy Build system. And at the time, I think I called it the System of Systems, because the Panzer Fightstick was available. Then you could get the Easy Build board separate and add that in with my custom wiring harnesses. And at that point, we're a little bit better off, so we could actually invest in a lot of cables and stuff like that to help keep the cost down. And then, the Panzer 2.0 was born out of all of that. And it featured, I think it was 3 different circuit boards on the inside with a bunch of wiring that connected them all up, and connected everything to the Brookboard pretty easily. So we ran those for about a year or so. And they were more expensive because they were bigger. There was a lot of parts. I think, if you look back here, these are just my SamDucks buttons and a couple Panzers over here. But this shelf went from the floor to the ceiling, and it was just all different Panzer 2.0 parts. And that can become a logistical challenge, even when you do have a big shop like I did at the time. So we left those on the market for about a year, went to Evo 2016. We're selling them at a booth there with one of our partners at the time. And then Spencer, one of the guys that worked with me for about 18 months while I was actually deployed in 2016 and 17, he said, "Hey man, I like my Panzer too, but it's kind of a beast to put together. There's a lot of parts." And I was like, "Yeah, that's true." And he's like, "Hey, have you considered going back to the original Panzer size and maybe simplifying things?" And so I was sitting on the ship out to sea one day, and I was like, I think we can take all the Panzer 1 stuff, the Panzer 2 stuff, and kind of merge it all together and create, essentially the Panzer 3. And so that's what we did. We took the size of the original Panzer, and then we took the Easy Build and the System of Systems that was in the Panzer 2, mushed it all together, and the Panzer 3 was designed. We did forego the swappable panels for the top, but we did that because, based on the sales to that point, the Sega Player 2 layout was by far the most popular that we had. And then Hitbox was a very close second. So that's what we focused in on. And a few people were upset that we discontinued the 2.0 because they wanted it. And they like the idea of the modularity, but it just made more sense to simplify the logistics chain and simplify the build again to appeal to more people. And I think we were able to accomplish that with the 3. And then because the Korean part scene has kind of blown up over the last couple years, we realized that a 2-inch tall case doesn't support the Korean levers. They're too tall. So we had to develop a Korean version of the case. So we had the Panzer 3, which was 2 inches, and the Panzer 3 Korean, which was 2.5 inches. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, these are the same thing. Why do I have two different cases again? And we're starting to get into that logistics pile up. And I said, let's just make the lever-based case 2.5 inches and the hitbox case 2 inches, and we'll call it good. And that's when we introduced the hybrid lever mounting system with our universal plate on the top, so that you can mount Korean levers and Japanese levers with no problems. And then we also added the plexiglass on top because people wanted to put art under it, and people tend to forget, but the original Panzer you could wrap with vinyl because we offered that service for about 4 years. I had a nice wide vinyl printer in the house, and people would submit artwork. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was all in my office. Again, that was one of those points of contention between the wife and I, because you buy this printer that, this is a normal size printer, but when you spread it out, this is the large printer. And I had to find room for that in our house because it couldn't go out in the workshop and it wasn't cheap. And so she was pretty upset with that, but we built some really cool fight sticks with it, and people would submit their artwork. I'd print it out, laminate it, cut it all on the machine, and then I would wrap it for them before I sent it off to them. So about this time every year, I get a couple of Facebook reminders. Hey, don't forget you built this stick, and they show the wraps, and it's good trip down memory lane. So yeah, we did that with the Panzer II as well, because we didn't offer any plexiglass for it, but the more I started thinking about it and how often I move and how expensive that printer is, and the risk to damage of the print head when you move, it made sense to discontinue doing that and offering plexiglass overlays with paper artwork underneath. And we did that through Tech Innovations, who unfortunately is no longer in business. But fortunately we found a good partner with Joe Sasbo at Sasbo's Arcades, and he does some awesome prints. He's a professional sign shop, and he's a huge arcade enthusiast, so it kind of made sense for he and I to work together on this. And he's provided a lot of really cool artwork and for the Panzer III. So kind of a long answer to get there, but we took all the good things of the Panzer I and the good things of the Panzer II plus some new ideas and smashed it all in, and that's how the Panzer III was developed.
Well, it's been a long journey. A long answer, I think, is extremely suiting for a question like that. So thank you for sharing that. That's really, really cool information. I had no idea, and it still kind of blows my mind how much effort behind the scenes goes into one of these things. And the fact that you're printing it out in your own house, wrapping it yourself, which is a timely process, especially like just getting it perfect, considering it's for someone else. If there's blemishes for yourself, not a big deal, but for someone else, right. That must have been pretty nerve-wracking, each stick going out, just the amount of care that had to be involved there. But
yeah, it was a process. And, one print, like the way we did it, just to make sure that there was no long-term effects with the solvents from the inks or anything like that between it and the transparent overlays, laminates, excuse me. We, it'd print one day, you let it dry for 24 hours, you'd laminate it, then you'd cut it, then you'd you put it on the fight stick. So that was about a 2.5 day process from start to finish. And so you'd go into one of my bedrooms, and I had like a clothesline with all these random prints hanging up and clothes outside drying. So we were very fortunate to have that space.
I've also noticed that you now offer aluminum sticks. So previously they were steel, but now they're aluminum. Well, some are aluminum. And I was just wondering, what are the differences and what's the main difference between the product?
So really, the difference between the steel and aluminum is just the weight. The thickness of the aluminum we use is very close to the same thickness of the steel we use. A standard Panzer weighs about 8.5 pounds empty. For the 2.5 inch tall case, the 2 inch case is a little bit less. I think maybe 7 3/4 or 8 pounds. And then the aluminum, it weighs 2.5 pounds. So,
oh, wow. I didn't know it was that much difference. Wow.
Yeah. So steel is a very dense, hard material, because it's comprised of so many different types of metals. And then, the aluminum, It's not as dense, so you get the same kind of strength for small parts that you would with steel, and it weighs so much less. So one of the big no, not compliments, because some people think the weight is a concern. Some of the concerns, rather, with the steel cases is, a lot of our customers like to travel for tournaments and stuff like that, and they have to carry an 8.5-pound fight stick on their back, and that can get tiring for even the people that work out a lot. So a lot of people asked if maybe we made smaller sticks or something like that, and I was like, let's just make some aluminum sticks. And so we made the aluminum series. We did the hitbox, and we did a Vuelix layout in aluminum. And I didn't want to cheapen the aluminum cases because I wasn't going to make a lot of them. And with manufacturing, volume is everything, right, when it comes to pricing. So I wanted to offer something that someone could buy and then just wire up on their own without an easy build system or anything like that. And so I did that with the Vuelix case, just because, it could save you $40, $50 in little pieces and parts with cables and wiring and all that stuff if you wanted something very basic and low cost. And then the hitbox, I decided to keep the easy build system in it because it was going to be a 1-for-1 changeover. All we did was change the material from steel to aluminum. So we figured we'll just keep that the same way. And if a lot of people really ask about the Vuelix layout, maybe we'll redesign it and add an easy build system. And the hitbox aluminum, they flew off the shelves like gangbusters. So I think we made the right decision there. And the Vuelix ones, not a lot of people were really interested in buying those. So we actually discontinued them. And I don't know if it was because it was a Vuelix layout or the lack of the easy build system, but it could be a combination of both. I'm not sure. So we've just gone ahead and phased that one out, and we had to cut some really good deals on it just to get them moving. And I think we only have one left. So it was an interesting experiment. We tried, and it didn't work out how we had hoped, but that's okay. That's kind of the fun of this is trying new things and seeing what happens. And maybe it'll come back. Maybe we'll have another aluminum lever-based system here soon. Maybe we're changing a bunch of stuff with the Panzer. I don't know. I can't tell you yet.
It's a secret.
Yes. I may have hinted at it already, though.
Speaking of layouts, though, you've mentioned Sega, you've mentioned Vuelix, you mentioned Hitbox, and I think you have a 30 millimeter and a 24 millimeter version of the Hitbox layout, if I'm not mistaken.
Not for the Panzer. But for our TE2 replacement panels, yeah.
That's it. Okay, that was it. I was just wondering, for the Panzer, what are all the layout options you do offer?
Right now, it's just the two. Well, I guess technically, because I still have one aluminum case left, it's 3. It's the Sega Player 2. It's the Hitbox, and it's not the Hitbox official layout. It's actually been tweaked a little bit by Rageous X, Devin down in Florida. A good friend of mine, worked with me for a couple years. Actually was one of my shipping partners out of the East Coast when I first moved here to Japan. And he actually kind of refined the Hitbox layout a little bit to make it a little bit more standard because there was a lot of discussions about what the actual layout was from official Hitbox. And he just kind of standardized it out a little bit. And he based it off the Vuelix layout, and sent it over. And he's a Hitbox player through and through. So I value his opinion on that very, very highly because I'm not a Hitbox player. My fingers just don't work that way. So that's the Hitbox layout we offer. And then the Vuelix and the aluminum Panzer. And those are, I think, the 3 big ones. Now, with our fight stick replacement panels, like for the Versus series, the TE2, the TEs, and stuff like that, we offer the Noir layout, which is very similar to the Sega Player 1 layout. And I think we may be seeing some more layouts coming to the Panzer here in the next maybe month or 2. We'll see.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I had no idea that your Hitbox layout was actually customized. I quite like that. How's the response been for the customized? Have people been specifically asking for that layout? Or
I don't know that people have specifically asked for it. I adopted it as the layout that we use. again, I'm not a hitbox player, and I give mad props to the guys who can play hitbox and the guys who developed that originally, because they've really changed the shape of the fighting game community. And I know you've done a couple videos on hitbox, and people have gotten very creative with customized hitboxes to try and give themselves an edge, some of which has been met with tournament legal issues. So we try to keep it ours basic and simple over here. But no, it's I think when you sit down and you actually make the Vuelix layout smaller, like Devin did with the Rage's X hitbox layout, and you put the 24mm buttons in it, it's just his rationale is the pinky is just easier to hit than having to kind of twist your hand down to hit it with that curve layout. Again, I'm not a hitbox player, so I can't say in one way or the other if that's 100% true, but I know it works for him. And I know a lot of people have been very happy with our panels and our cases that use that layout.
So now, based on all of this information, what is the most popular version of stick that you do sell at your store?
So I think we actually have to rephrase that question. What is the most popular case that you sell? Because my most popular actually doesn't have a lever in it at all. It's I think it's my hitbox versions. I think with Daigo using the hitbox and trying it out, and just the popularity of it increasing, I think a lot of people are getting interested in it and wanting to try it out for themselves. And so I think over the last 6-7 months, just hitbox sales are, way up here, and, lever sales are up here, but hitbox has, I think, the edge right now. And I don't see that slowing down.
In terms of customizations, what are all the options you offer?
So the good thing about our fight sticks is they're kind of a blank slate. And so with the cases, you can get all sorts of different colors. We got black and graphite, white and blue, like you see behind me. We've got some reds. And I recently started working with a powder coat manufacturer that does a lot of unique colors, and they offer very low volumes of powder. So you can do 1 or 2 sticks without having to buy $800-900 worth of powder coat material. So we started bringing that on, and all of the stuff we have is available on our website. So you can pick something off the shelf, and we normally keep black and white in stock ready to ship because those are our 2 most popular requests. But we have an emerald green with a little black base, and the graphites and the reds and the blues, like I said before. And then if you get crazy and you want to do something we don't offer, or a combination of the colors, typically, shoot me an email and I'll make you that case whatever color you want pretty easily. So with that, then, the case, we've developed a lot of interesting pieces and parts for the cases as well. Let's see. I don't have any up here, but, you can do the RJ45 connector, or, the standard USB connector like you see on these 2 fight sticks. This one actually has a brick retro board in it, and this one has a universal fight board. But, we have the Pro cable connector, which is, common on the TE2s and TE2 pluses. And now I think I know that the Razor has it as well. Pinout's a little bit different, but, they use that same style connector. And then, the gasket colors and the button colors and all that stuff. One of the more interesting things that we've started doing in the last couple years is printed plexi. And basically what that is we take a sheet of plexi and print directly to it and then cut it in the laser. So you don't have a piece of paper or anything like that between your fight stick and your plexiglass. And typically that results in a much brighter, cleaner look when it's installed. And it's a lot easier because you don't have to worry about, dust or debris or anything like that getting trapped between your plexi layer and your artwork. And then the other thing we started doing is carbon fiber overlays. And so basically, instead of installing a piece of plexi on top, you throw a real piece of carbon fiber that's specifically cut for your Panzer on top. And that's been pretty popular as well. It's a little bit more pricey because carbon fiber is definitely not cheap, but it comes out with a pretty good look when it's all done. And you don't have to be creative, which is great for people like me who are engineers and not creative. So, and then, with that, working with our partner over at Sasbo's Arcades, he does some awesome prints as well. And, fortunately, a lot of the fight sticks you've seen that I've posted that have artwork, that's all courtesy of some really talented artists that we have in the FGC. So I've worked with Purple Grimace Designs a lot over the last couple years. He actually did my Prince Namor, the Submariner Panzer Fightstick artwork. He did my Dragon Ball Fighter Z artwork that has kind of the splashes, and it's a very distinct art style. You see that and he did it. He did some artwork for me for SCR in 2017 when we gave the winner of I think the Street Fighter tournament a Panzer Fightstick with custom SC. I'm sorry, no. He didn't do that art. Hibachi Final did that art. He did art in that same run for Tekken, and I think I gave a Tekken stick away. And so Purple Grimace did the Tekken art, and Hibachi Final did the SCR artwork. I apologize for the mix up there, but and then recently we've just I worked with Mattis Meow. She did the Sakura artwork that's been up on our site. We're gonna actually print those in this month's printed plexi run. That's kind of a mouthful. And then Cy Evermore, he's done some. And then Big East Customs, he did one as well. So yeah, work with a lot of artists because they're way more creative than I am. I just kind of have random ideas that I think will look cool. I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And they're like, all right, give me a couple days. And they come back with something and you're just like, that's going to be amazing. So if any of them look really pretty, it's definitely not because of me. I just provide a good canvas for people, I think.
So you've talked a little bit about transitioning over to aluminum to make things lighter. You've talked about the height differences between the Panzer III and the 3i. Now, we've also talked about carbon fiber. You said you're not creative. I highly disagree with that statement. How did this whole idea with carbon fiber come about?
So, a lot of things I do aren't related to fight sticks and arcades and stuff like that. I've been a long-time car guy. I built my first car when I was 14. I had a 1970 Volkswagen Beetle that I bought. I mowed a lot of grass for a lot of summers. And I bought this cheap piece of crap Volkswagen Beetle for $500. And I restored it in my garage with a little bit of help from my dad. And a lot more mowing of lawns so I could afford mechanics to fix certain things that I didn't know how to do. And that kind of kicked off my passion and my love of cars. And ever since then, I've had, a wide variety of cars and trucks and stuff like that. And when you become a car guy, you kind of get exposed to a lot of different things. And chrome and carbon fiber, kind of like the two number one things in the car industry. People want to throw carbon fiber hoods on because it saves weight, and they want chrome on their cars because it makes it look, very fancy and very expensive. I've never been a huge fan of the chrome aspect of it, but I have been a fan of the carbon fiber aspect of it, mostly from the performance gains that you get from it. And so I thought, one day I was actually looking up parts to repair my 1989 Fairlady Z that I have here in Japan. And I had to buy like a new plenum cover or something like that. I forget what it was. And I came across one of the Z specialty shops, and they sell a lot of carbon fiber stuff. And I was like, I think that might look cool on top of a fight stick, because I've seen a lot of people wrap fight sticks with, their overlays when they have like messed up artwork or something like that. And I was like, I bet you a real carbon fiber panel would look pretty cool, and it would be far better than a vinyl wrap. And so again, one of the random contacts I've made over the years since I've started doing this, they do carbon fiber work. I reached out and said, hey, what about this? And they said, let's do it. You just have to buy like 200 of them. And I was like, okay, let's do it and see what happens. So that's where the carbon fiber came from. And then, just a lot of things that influence the design comes from, either the car world that I've been a part of, and, things I've just kind of learned from doing that. Or surprisingly, one of the big ones is the aquarium hobby. I keep saltwater aquariums for fun, which many would argue isn't fun because it's a lot of extra work and it's kind of challenging, but I've come up with some crazy plumbing systems and stuff like that for the aquariums that I've had, and I've learned a lot of interesting ways to do things through that hobby. And then falling back to when all else fails, you can always rely on being an engineer to help you come up with creative ways to solve problems. And one of the things that maybe not a lot of people realize is I'm a Navy nuclear engineer and submarine officer by day. So for the first 2 years of my Navy career, I was learning how to operate nuclear reactors and figure out how to fix them and work on them and keep them safe on a tube that's designed to sink. So you learn a lot of interesting engineering things there, because these were all designed in the 60s and 70s, and people were very creative with technology back then because it wasn't what it is now. So you learn a lot that way, and you kind of merge everything together whenever it makes sense. And that's where a lot of the inspiration for the Panzer comes from.
All right, now I want to talk about SamDucks. So I've seen a lot about these kind of buttons, I'll say, recently, and I've seen the popularity grow very, very quickly in a short period of time. And I think I see some behind you there. So I'm just wanting to know a little bit about your position here with SamDucks buttons.
Yeah, so SamDucks, or Crown, as a lot of people in the United States actually know them by, they've been doing arcade parts for years. I don't know their full history, but about 10 years ago, I took a trip to Korea and had an opportunity to sit down and play on one of their arcade cabinets, because they actually make arcade cabinets and buttons and levers. They make a lot of stuff. And it was just an interesting feel. And over the last, I think, probably 5 or 6 years, I've seen a lot more people start using Korean parts in their fight sticks, mostly the levers, because admittedly, their original buttons aren't the greatest. They're weird sizes. Some of them are weird sizes, and they just weren't the best for most people's tastes compared to Sanwas or Sumitsu's. And late last year, they released their 202 series, which is their mechanical series. And each button uses a Cherry MX Silver switch inside. So they're all mechanical. And we've seen over the last few years, people really take gaming on PCs to the extreme, and they pick keyboards based on the switches and whether you can switch them out and stuff like that. And Cherry MX is tried and true. So I think that SamDucks Crown saw this as an opportunity to integrate their manufacturing capabilities and this growing trend for requiring precise, fast actuating, fast releasing button micro switches into one product. And I think they hit it out of the park. I think they still got a ways to go with colors. There's a lot more colors out there I'd like to see be made, but for the most part, they're a great button. They use the, like I said, the Cherry MX switches. The build quality on them is very good. And being a mechanical keyboard guy myself, I like just the overall feel of it. It reminds me of typing on my keyboard. And I think that's why they've hit it out of the park with these buttons. I think another thing to note is, people like Gamerfinger did a great service to the community because I think they were the first to offer a arcade button with a mechanical switch inside. Unfortunately, one of the things that they did that a lot of people don't like is they made them octagons. So, they can promote a brand identity based on, you see a button and you're like, I know that's a Gamerfinger button. And from a marketing perspective, I think it's very creative, but from a implementation perspective, it drives someone like me crazy because I've got insane OCD. And when you have 8 buttons, if they're not all perfectly lined up with those octagons, I just look at it and like a little part of me dies. So I think the reason the SamDucks buttons have become so popular is because they're just a standard circular button with the quality mechanical switch inside, and they're available. So I think that's why they're super popular. And in my opinion, they're just a really high quality button, and they just offer something that's a little bit different and more unique than the current Sanwa buttons.
So, although you're well known for your Panzer sticks, you've touched on this a little bit in one of your earlier answers, but can you talk about your easy mods?
Yeah. So, again, the easy mod is something I came up with while I was on deployment in, I think it was 2015, if I remember correctly. And Hori just released the new VLX, the dark one, the black and gray one. And I thought that's going to be a really nice stick. And I think they're going to make a limited number of them like they tend to do with those. Wouldn't it be really cool if you could put a universal fight board in it pretty easy? And I started doing some research to look up pinouts and stuff like that. And I think, and again, if I get the history wrong, I apologize to all the viewers out there. I either think it was Clayton or, Freak Mods or Toodles, one of the two. And I actually think it was Clayton, if I had to guess one. He developed a widget board or something like that for one of the TEs or the VLXs a while ago. This was like 2012 or 13 or something like that, maybe even earlier than that. And I thought it was a really interesting idea because it let you do like a dual mod in that stick. And I thought, yeah, that's actually a pretty clever idea. I wonder if there's a different way to do it and if there's a way to just rip out the existing hardware and put new hardware in without actually damaging anything. And because that was very important, because if you think about it, the PS3 Diamond VLX is a very sought after stick. It commands high prices. I think, $400 or $500 right now, or more if it's in really good shape. I'm actually very fortunate. I have two of them, and I'm even more fortunate that I didn't have to pay $400 or $500 for them either. So, I ended up buying one of those dark sticks and doing the research and finding out the other one, but the other type of modification you could do with it to dual mod it. And I was like, I want to just kind of design something that is a non-destructive conversion. And so I pulled the board out and took some measurements and did a bunch of circuit designs. And then I actually, because I was gone and I couldn't bring this 22-inch wide stick on the small submarine with me, I enlisted the help of one of my friends, Anthony, in North Carolina, because he had bought one too. And I said, hey, can you do me a favor and, check some pinouts for me? And, he did that and sent them over. I whipped up some initial schematics. And then when I got back from deployment, I actually rechecked my stick, found a couple things that need to be tweaked, and then, sent it off for manufacturing, a prototype for manufacturing, and brought it in, hooked it up, and I made it work the first time. It was very unusual because that never really happens with circuit boards. And then, so that kind of, that started the easy mod thing, if you will. And it ended up working out really well because the VLX, while it's a great stick, I think it has some pretty significant latency issues that people didn't like about it. And the idea that you could, swap this, helper board in really and just stack a universal fight board on top of it, and then kind of undo it to restore it to factory was very appealing to people. So we started there, and then the TE2 came out, TE2 Plus came out, and so we started and we did a TE2 easy mod because we could, and we thought it was a good idea. The Brook Universal Fight Board was out. People wanted to upgrade some of their older TE2s and get rid of some of the problems they were having with their boards failing, so we did that one. And again, almost completely reversible. They did solder their USB connector onto their stock board, so you have to cut that off. But did that one. Then the TE2 Plus came out. It was completely different than the TE2, so we had to kind of rework the software on the easy build because it wasn't quite as straightforward as the VLX. And so we did that, and then we did one for the Obsidian, which was a huge pain in the neck, and I will probably never do another easy mod for a fight stick like that because their top panel has an integrated button set, and if things aren't perfect, it's a research and development nightmare because you have to send circuit boards off to get made, and then if they don't fit, then you got to redo it, and it was kind of a pain in the neck, but it's done, and I'm glad it's done, but probably not again. And then let's see which other ones we did. We did one for the Fighting Edge. That one was actually pretty straightforward. I have one for the Wrap End that eventually I'm going to get around to releasing. I get overcome by so many projects because I'm always doing so many things. And then we instead of designing the one for the TE completely on our own, the Real Phoenix on Twitter, he had actually developed an easy mod type system for the TE series. And so I reached out to him and I said, hey, I'm looking at probably doing this too. And I just want to give you a heads up that I'm going to be making it. And then he said, why don't I just sell you my design and you can tweak it however you want. And I was like, okay, sounds great. So he and I worked out a deal and I was able to take some of his work, compensate him for it and bring it in and then brand it as an easy mod and then make some tweaks and changes to it to make the install a lot easier overall. And, that's how that one was born. So ultimately, the easy mods were something, again, it was an interesting project to take on once, and then it just kind of evolved into more and more and more. And it's one of those things I don't foresee ever stopping making, because what I've seen at least is, people like to hold on to their fight stick cases, especially the diehard guys. So you get the TE users out there, and now, that's, their favorite form factor, but they can't use it on Xbox One or PlayStation 4. Well, now they can. So I think as long as people remain in the hobby and like these specific form factors, we'll keep trying to make random easy mods for these upgrades later.
Over the last few years, I've seen your store grow quite exponentially. You offer a lot more products than you used to. And besides your Panzer Fightsticks, besides the easy mods, what else do you offer in your store?
So we've recently started carrying buttons, both Sanwa and SamDucks, levers from both companies. We've expanded our Brook lineup with the wireless fight board, the PS4 Plus with audio, the regular PS4, and we're going to continue adding Brook products to the shop, and because they just make really good stuff. And let's see what else. So one of the more important things that we've started carrying is the auto DIY lever upgrades. They're just fantastic upgrades that really change the feel and function of a JLF. And then that has kind of opened the aperture to some other things, like we've designed some replacement aluminum shafts and ball tops and dust washers. And then, obviously recently we launched the plate, and that makes the installation of the auto stuff a lot easier because you don't have to try and get your existing plate off of your JLF. So a lot more custom stuff. And then, with all that, some interesting, unique pieces that make it all work together. Like, JLF adapters for hitbox, so you don't have to cut your wires there, or JLF adapters for the Korean levers because they use different connection styles. And obviously the buttons and the levers and, all the traditional stuff. And we didn't carry that for years because of, partnerships that we had, and, we didn't want to step on toes. Plus, I wasn't sure if it was financially responsible at that point to expand, because the community and the hobby and the economy, it all just kind of, everything weighs heavy on, business and growth. So we played it very safe for very many years. And now that, the partnerships that we had are different now, or, our offerings are expanding. We want to make it easier for people to, come pick up some stuff they need and just kind of get it all in one fell swoop. So that's one of the main reasons why we've expanded the way we have. And, we're going to continue doing that, as most of the stuff that we build or design is all just stuff that, I think we need, or things that I'm like, oh, it'd be really cool if I had this. Yeah, let's just make something like that. So we'll continue doing that for as long as the community lets us and continues to support us, and and even expanding just standard stock product offerings and stuff like that. Because ideally, when you come over and you buy a Panzer, I want you to be able to get everything you need in one fell swoop and get it all shipped in one box. So you get it and it's just ready to go.
Now, you have made a lot of fight sticks over the last number of years. Which one or which few have been your most memorable?
Ooh, that's a tough question. So I think the best way to kind of break it is by generation. So if we go back to the original Panzer, my favorite Panzer I did was for a customer in Canada. And he has a green and white Panzer. Top is green and the bottom is white. No, I'm sorry. the top is white and the bottom is green. And he did a full wrap for his fight stick that he had us print and apply for him. And as a matter of fact, it just showed up on my timeline today to remind me that I posted it up on Facebook, 2014, I think it was. And every time it comes up, I just get so excited because the artwork on it and the final build when it was done was just beautiful. So that was that one. And then I think in the Panzer II series, I actually have two favorites. And one of them is actually mine. And another is a customer of mine. Both of them are fully wrapped. Mine has a universal fight board in it, and so does his. But his has a full wrap on it, and it's Guile themed. And it's like super gung-ho America with, Air Force kind of stylings and Guile on it because, he's a colonel in the Air Force in the game. And then I remember building that stick, and the Panzer II actually had LEDs inside of it. So the Easy Build had LEDs physically on the board. So you could just hook up a Kamana controller and just out the gate have LED lit up buttons. And this fight stick had that with the universal fight board and all the buttons lit up with this Guile artwork. And it was beautiful. And it just so happened to be the day I finished it, I actually got a brand new ribbon rack in the mail for my uniform, for my dress uniform. So I got this brand new ribbon rack that's fresh from the manufacturer, leaned up against the Panzer, and I took a picture of it. And it was just like the most like gung-ho America, kind of fight stick I've ever seen. And that's probably the most memorable from that generation. And then the Panzer III that's tough because it's probably, I think it's my longest running series. And I've just done so many designs and things that it's probably hard to pick the most memorable one. But I think if I had to guess, the Dragon Ball Fighter Z one that Purple Grimace came up with the artwork for, that's probably one of my most memorable. And then my probably most favorite is some of the fight sticks that a customer in Virginia has. He has a lot of artwork by JXK Designs, Johnny Fraze. And he's done all printed plexi on all his Panzers. And the team at JXK does great artwork. And, the guy's ideas with their artwork on his fight sticks, they just come out incredible. So both a great artists and great eye for detail and inspiration from the customer. And I think his has got I think it's I'm not up to speed 100% on my anime, so it's probably wrong, but I think it's Rival Schools. And then he actually has a Wu-Tang Clan one, which is kind of insane because it's got the Wu-Tang Clan on the fight stick in printed plexi in like a graffiti style. And when I first saw that, I was like, this is weird. And then when I saw it built out, I was like, this is awesome. So those are kind of my my Panzer III favorites. And then I always have some personal favorites of mine. I've got my camouflage Panzer III that I built for myself with the brown Sanwa buttons, and then my Namor the Submariner fight stick, again artwork by Purple Grimace, is my personal favorite because it's one of mine. And being a submarine guy, Prince Namor, the Submariner, it just kind of all fits together. So it's a very personal connection on that one.
So in terms of professional players, I have seen you build fight sticks for a certain someone. Did you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I hope he's okay with it, and I'm sure he is. So we did build a fight stick. Actually, we've built 3 fight sticks for L.I. Joe over in New York. And again, Hibachi Final did some really cool custom artwork for his fight stick. And I think his was one of the first, if not the first or second fight stick we did printed plexi on. And that came about because he mentioned on Twitter that his TE2 failed and he needed a new stick. And I just reached out and said, hey, let me build you one. No cost. I just want you to have a stick because I enjoyed your performance at Evo 2016. And, when your dad came out, I thought that was really epic. And he was like, heck yeah, let's do it. And then since then he's bought, I think, 2 more. So he's definitely a proud member of the Panzer Brigade.
And if I'm not mistaken, you also have a sponsored player.
I do. Yeah. So Greg, down in Alabama, he is a longtime Panzer owner, and I wanted to expand what we did and try and reach out and provide back a little bit more to the community than we've had in the past. And unfortunately, our timing was just perfect because now all the tournaments are getting canceled, so Greg's not actually able to travel anywhere. But safety first, and it makes sense. So wishing everyone a lot of luck right now. So Greg down in Alabama, he is our first sponsored player, and he's got a custom graphite Panzer with SamDucks buttons and a link and stuff like that. And I think I posted some pictures of it on my Twitter and Facebook if you guys want to check it out. And again, custom artwork by Purple Grimace, so all on printed plexi. And so you'll probably see that out on his stream, and when he does take to the locals when they actually start having them again.
So we've talked about a ton of different things. We've talked about, Jasen's Customs in the past, the history of the Panzer. What's in the future? What's next for Jasen's Customs?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. I don't know, and it's easy to say. It's easy to say that because I really don't know. A lot of things that we end up developing kind of just come to me. Like, oh, it'd be cool is, hey, I should do this. Or, oh, it'd be cool is, hey, we should carry this now. Or, people like SamDucks and Samwa come up with a new product. I'm like, that's sweet. Let me add that to the store. So I think it's going to be a lot of, what we see companies do in 2020 from the big companies will help dictate some of the things that we do here in our store. But I think the big thing that we want to do is continue to grow and expand all the different part offerings we have. Because again, I don't want to have you go from shop A to B to C in order to build a Panzer. I want you to be able to come to me, get everything you need, and just be on your way. It also kind of helps me because I like to offer build out services for people, and through our new Panzer builder on our website, you can go through and you can customize a Panzer build from start to finish, and at the very end you can choose, hey, you build it for me. And by offering the new buttons, by offering the new levers and stuff like that, that Panzer builder is just growing with options. And so, that's kind of the stuff we want to focus on this year, is expanding the stuff that we have in the store to make your Panzer build easier, and then to physically make the website a lot better and easier. So that's one of the first steps that we took in 2020, was to update the Panzer builder. No longer is there 52 different kits you have to choose from. You can kind of, all right, I want a lever-based stick, and click through, and at the end you have a kit built up with some nice discounts built in with the more stuff you buy. And then, hopefully you see some more stuff like that on the website. So I think 2020 is going to be the year of just expansion of products and changing of the website and continuing to grow that kind of stuff. And then, I'm never happy and content with the design of the Panzer. I've been working on a new replacement for the Panzer for probably 2 years now. And so, maybe in a couple months, we're going to see a Panzer 4 or a Panzer M. We'll call it that. We're going to call it Project M. And maybe we'll see some new stuff there in the Panzer lineup that I think is going to be an interesting change, because I actually have the prototypes, and I was this close to bringing them so you could see them today, but I don't think I'm ready yet.
Well, thank you. That was a lot of great information. I just want to say thank you so much for being on the channel here. I'm sure people watching this video are probably in the exact same boat. I want to say thank you too for your service. I know I'm Canadian, not necessarily American, but at the same time, I can appreciate what you do. And thank you very much.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
So that's it for this video. However, there is a giveaway. So Jasen has graciously donated a $100 gift card to his store, jasenscustoms.com. You heard it right, $100 to use at jasenscustoms.com. Now to enter is really, really simple. Just comment below, let me know your favorite part of this interview. That's really it. There's nothing else. There's no hoops to jump through. Just let me know in the comments below your favorite part of the interview that we just had, and then you're entered, and I will do the draw at the end of April. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. So if you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't like my video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Thank you, everyone. Take care.